The massive ship drifted through space like a metal mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Inside the ship, hundreds of different alien species worked together in the largest meeting hall in the galaxy. This was the Galactic Council Chamber, and today they were discussing the most boring topic on their list: a small blue planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a world called Earth. Ambassador Vextar looked at the holographic display with 6 of his 8 eyes. The other 2 eyes were busy reading reports on his datapad. He was a Krillian, which meant he looked like a giant purple mantis wearing fancy robes. His species had been part of the Council for over 3,000 years. Status report on Sector 7749, he said in a bored voice. The system containing the primitive world called Earth. A younger alien stepped forward. She was from the Hegemony, one of the most powerful groups in the Council. Her name was Dr. Ythara, and she looked like a tall, thin lizard with 4 arms. She had been studying Earth for the past 50 years. The humans remain completely unaware of our presence, she reported. Their technology is still very basic. They use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. They burn fossil fuels for energy. They still fight wars with metal bullets and explosive devices. Several council members made sounds that meant they were not impressed. Some even laughed quietly. "How long have we been watching them?" asked Ambassador Zethkri. He was from the same species as Dr. Ythara, but much older and more important. His scales were dark red instead of green, which showed his high rank. 215 years, Dr. Ythara answered. In all that time, their progress has been very slow. They only learned to fly 120 years ago. They only split the atom 80 years ago. They only started using computers 40 years ago. Pathetic, muttered another council member. My species went from discovering fire to traveling between stars in just 300 years. Dr. Ythara continued her report. The humans seem to be stuck in a cycle of war and peace. They fight among themselves constantly. They waste their resources on conflicts instead of science. They pollute their own planet. They show no signs of becoming a space-traveling civilization anytime soon. What about their population? Asked Vextar. About 8 billion individuals. They are divided into many different groups that often hate each other. They speak hundreds of different languages. They follow different religions. They cannot even agree on how to govern themselves. Typical pre-space behavior, said Zethkri. No unity, no vision, no purpose beyond their own small world. The Council had seen thousands of species like this. Most never made it to the stars. They either destroyed themselves in wars, or they used up all their planet's resources, or they simply stayed on their home world forever, never looking up at the night sky and wondering what was out there. What is their current technology level? Asked another council member. They have basic computers, but nothing like our quantum systems. They use radio waves for communication, but they are very slow and weak. Their fastest spaceships would take them thousands of years to reach even the closest star. They have nuclear weapons, but only small ones that could destroy cities, not planets. Do they know about us? This question came from a species that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. No evidence of that, Dr. Ythara said. They sometimes look for radio signals from space, but they are searching in all the wrong places. They have never detected any of our ships or communication networks. As far as they know, they are alone in the universe. This was exactly what the Council wanted to hear. The humans were not a threat. They were not advanced enough to cause problems. They were not even interesting enough to make contact with. The Council had strict rules about this. They only made contact with species that had certain technologies. The species had to have faster than light travel. They had to have unified government for their whole planet. They had to have stopped fighting wars among themselves. Humans had none of these things. Recommendation? Asked Vextar. Continue monitoring from a distance. Check back in another 50 years. If they show no improvement, we can remove them from the active watch list. Several council members nodded in agreement. Earth was not worth their time or attention. There were much more important things to discuss today. What none of them knew was that their conversation was being recorded, high above Earth's atmosphere, hidden by technology that made it invisible to both human and alien sensors. A small ship listened to every word. The ship was no bigger than a car, but it contained the most advanced listening equipment in the galaxy. Inside the ship, a human woman named Captain Sarah Chen heard every insult, every dismissive comment, every casual discussion about whether her species was worth watching. She had been listening to council broadcasts for 5 years now. It was her job. She spoke into a small device. "Control, this is Deep Watch Station 7. The Council just finished their Earth review. Same as always. They think we are primitive and harmless," a voice answered from the device. "Copy that, Station 7. How long until their next review?" 50 years unless something major happens." "Perfect. That gives us plenty of time to prepare for Phase 3. Captain Chen looked out at the stars. Each point of light might have planets around it. Many of those planets had alien species living on them, species that thought humans were too stupid and weak to matter. They were wrong about that. Very wrong. Humans had been in space for much longer than the aliens knew. They had been traveling between stars for over a century. They had colonies on dozens of worlds that the Council had never discovered. They had technology that made Council science look like stone tools. But humans had learned something important from studying the galaxy. They had learned that the strongest species were not always the ones who showed their strength. Sometimes it was better to stay quiet and let others think you were weak. The Council controlled most of the galaxy through fear and force. They had destroyed species that challenged them. They had enslaved worlds that had resources they wanted. They made the rules and everyone else had to follow them or be destroyed. But humans had been preparing for this day for a very long time. While the Council thought they were burning fossil fuels and fighting with primitive weapons, humans had been building something much bigger. Something the Council could not imagine. The galaxy was about to change. The Council just did not know it yet. Captain Chen smiled as she listened to the aliens laugh about human stupidity. She wondered if they would still be laughing when they learned the truth. Probably not. 3 months later, the Galactic Council met again. This time it was not a small meeting about Earth. This was the Grand Assembly, where all the most important species in the galaxy came together to make big decisions. The meeting hall was enormous, bigger than most cities. Thousands of different aliens sat in rows that went up so high, they disappeared into the darkness above. Floating platforms carried speakers from one level to another. Holographic displays showed star maps and data from across the galaxy. Today they were discussing new mining rights in the Outer Rim territories. Several small species had been found living on planets that contained valuable minerals. The Council needed to decide what to do with these species. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the main speaking platform. His red scales gleamed under the bright lights. He was one of the most powerful members of the Council, and when he spoke, everyone listened. The worlds in question contain enough rare metals to power our civilization for the next 1,000 years, he said. His voice echoed through the huge chamber. However, they are currently occupied by primitive species that do not understand the value of what they possess. A holographic display showed pictures of the planets. Green worlds with blue oceans, very much like Earth. The aliens living there looked peaceful and happy in their simple villages. "What is your recommendation?" asked the Council chairman. He was a being of pure energy, older than most stars, and he spoke with a voice like distant thunder. "Relocation," said Zethkri. "We move the primitive species to other worlds where they can live, without interfering with mining operations. It is the merciful solution." Several Council members made sounds of agreement. This was how things usually worked. The Council decided what resources it needed and smaller species got moved out of the way. But then someone in the audience laughed. It was a young member from the Rex Republic, a species that looked like giant crabs with too many claws. "Relocation?" the young alien said. "Why waste the effort? These primitive species are all the same. They breed too quickly. They do not adapt well to new worlds, and they cause problems wherever we put them." "What are you suggesting?" asked Zethkri. "Look at the data," the Vrex continued. "Every time we have relocated a primitive species, half of them die within 10 years. The other half become pirates or rebels or other forms of trouble. It would be much easier to simply eliminate them and be done with it." A shocked silence filled the chamber. Even the Council had rules about genocide. They could not simply kill entire species just because it was convenient. But then Zethkri began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle, but it grew louder until it echoed through the whole chamber. "You know," he said, "that reminds me of another primitive species we have been monitoring. The humans from Earth. Those pathetic creatures are so backward that they still burn fossil fuels and fight wars with chemical explosives." More laughter rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew about Earth. It had become a joke among Council members. I heard they recently sent a tiny metal can to their own moon and acted like it was a great achievement, said another member. This one was from the Crystalline Collective, a species that looked like living diamonds. Their whole planet has nuclear weapons pointed at each other, added someone else. They are so stupid they might destroy themselves and save us the trouble. Zethkri was enjoying himself now. The laughter was making him feel important and clever. He decided to make an even bigger joke. Perhaps we should help them along, he said with a grin that showed his sharp teeth. Those pathetic Earth creatures are so primitive. They still burn fossil fuels and squabble over resources like animals. Maybe we should glass their world and use it as a mining colony. It is not like they could stop us or even know we are coming. The laughter that followed was louder than anything heard in the chamber for years. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of species all laughed at the idea of weak, stupid humans trying to fight the mighty Galactic Council. They would probably surrender the moment they saw our ships, called out someone from the back. If they even understood what spaceships were, added another voice. We could conquer their whole planet with a single patrol vessel, laughed a third. Zethkri was having the time of his life. I bet they would try to fight us with their primitive chemical rockets. Can you imagine? Trying to attack a council warship with technology that cannot even reach the next planet in their solar system. The jokes went on for several minutes. They talked about human weakness, human stupidity, human ignorance. They made fun of human bodies, calling them soft and fragile. They mocked human technology, calling it barely better than stone tools. The best part, said Zethkri, is that they have no idea we exist. We could destroy their entire civilization, and they would never even know what hit them. They would die thinking they were alone in the universe. Finally, the chairman called for order. The laughter slowly died down, and the council returned to the serious business of discussing mining rights and species relocation. The broadcast of the meeting was recorded and sent to every world in council space, as always. It was important for all member species to see how their government worked. The recording included every word, every laugh, every joke about the pathetic humans who were too primitive to matter. What the council did not know was that humans had been monitoring their broadcasts for over 50 years. Every meeting, every discussion, every casual conversation was recorded by human intelligence networks. On a secret base hidden in the asteroid belt of a distant star system, a human intelligence officer named Commander David Park watched the broadcast with growing anger.
He had been listening to council meetings for 12 years.
But he had never heard anything like this. He immediately sent a priority message to Earth. Code Red, Council has discussed genocide against Earth as entertainment. Recommend immediate activation of all deep cover assets. The message traveled through quantum communication networks that the Council could not detect. It reached Earth in less than 3 minutes. Within an hour, similar messages were being sent to every human colony, every deep cover agent, every sleeper ship hiding in dark space between the stars. The message was simple. They went too far. It is time. Across the galaxy, humans who had spent decades living among alien species received their activation codes. Some of them had been undercover so long they had almost forgotten they were human spies. Some held important positions in alien governments. Some worked in council military facilities. Some operated alien communication networks. All of them had been waiting for this day. The day when humanity would stop pretending to be weak and show the galaxy what they were really capable of. In the council chamber, the aliens continued their meeting, completely unaware that they had just signed their own death warrant. They had insulted the wrong species. They had threatened the wrong planet. They were about to learn that humans had not been quiet because they were weak. They had been quiet because they were planning. Exactly 48 hours after the council broadcast, strange things began happening across the galaxy. It started on Vex Prime, the capital world of the Krillian Empire. The planet was covered in massive cities that reached toward the clouds, connected by transport tubes that carried millions of aliens every day. It was one of the most advanced worlds in council space. At 0300 local time, every communication satellite orbiting the planet suddenly went dark. The blackout lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the satellites came back online, their memory banks had been completely wiped. 30 years of stored communications, navigation data, and emergency protocols were gone. The Krillian authorities were confused but not worried. Equipment sometimes failed. They would rebuild the data from backup systems. But when they tried to access their backup systems, they discovered that those had been wiped too, and the backups of the backups, and the emergency backup systems that were stored in underground bunkers on the other side of the planet. Everything was gone. While the Krillians tried to figure out what had happened, similar events were occurring on 11 other worlds. On Hegemony Central, the main military command center suffered a complete computer failure. Every screen went black, every system shut down, every weapon became useless. The failure lasted exactly 17 minutes, just like on Vex Prime. When the systems came back online, the Hegemony discovered that all their defense plans had been deleted. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, shield frequencies, communication codes, everything an enemy would need to attack them. On the crystal world of Zethara Minor, every power generator on the planet experienced what experts called impossible harmonic resonance failure. The massive crystal structures that provided energy to billions of aliens cracked and went dark. The planet was left without power for exactly 17 minutes. On the gas giant mining stations of the Outer Rim, cargo transport ships began receiving navigation data that sent them to the wrong destinations. Valuable shipments of rare minerals ended up floating in empty space instead of reaching their intended markets. On the water world of Aquanus, the tidal control systems malfunctioned, causing massive floods in several coastal cities. The floods lasted exactly 17 minutes before the water mysteriously receded. Each incident seemed random and unconnected. Technical failures happened all the time across such a huge galaxy, but human intelligence analysts had spent decades mapping Council infrastructure, and they knew exactly which systems to target for maximum disruption. The 17-minute timing was not an accident. It was a message. Humans were telling the Council that these accidents could be controlled and stopped at will. Dr. Yathera was in her laboratory on a research station orbiting a dead star when the attacks began. She was analyzing data from her latest Earth observations when every computer in the facility suddenly displayed the same message. System error, contact system administrator. She tried to restart her equipment, but nothing worked. For 17 minutes, the entire research station was completely dead. No lights, no life support, no communications. The only reason she did not die was because of her emergency breathing apparatus. When power returned, all her research data was gone. 20 years of work studying primitive species, including all her files on Earth, had been completely erased. At first, the Council did not connect these incidents. Space was huge and technical problems happened everywhere. But as reports kept coming in from across the galaxy, patterns began to emerge. All the failures happened at exactly the same time when adjusted for Galactic Standard Time. All of them lasted exactly 17 minutes. All of them affected the most critical systems: communications, defense, power, and transportation. Ambassador Vextar was in an emergency meeting with his security chief when the real shock came. A junior officer rushed into the room carrying a datapad with a look of pure terror on his face. "Sir," the officer said, "we have analyzed the attacks. We know how they were done." "Report," Vextar ordered. "The systems were not damaged, sir. They were shut down remotely using administrative access codes that we did not know existed. Whoever did this had complete control of our most secure networks." Vextar felt his blood turn cold. "That is impossible. Our security systems were designed by the best experts in the galaxy. No one can break into them without physical access to the core computers." "That is what we thought, sir. But the analysis shows that the attackers did not break in. They already had access. They have been inside our systems for years, maybe decades, just waiting. Who could do such a thing?" The officer looked down at his datapad. "According to our investigation, the attacks were carried out by deep cover agents using sleeper programs that have been hidden in our networks for a very long time. The level of planning and coordination required would take decades to achieve. Which species has that kind of intelligence capability? We do not know, sir. But whoever they are, they know our technology better than we do. They knew exactly which systems to target and exactly how to disable them without causing permanent damage. This was not random destruction. This was a demonstration." Similar conversations were happening on Council worlds across the galaxy. Security experts were discovering that their most protected systems had been compromised by an unknown enemy. An enemy that had been watching and planning for a very long time. But the real shock was still to come. In deep space, far from any star or planet, something impossible began to happen. The empty darkness started to ripple and bend like water. Reality itself seemed to crack open. From these cracks in space, ships began to emerge. They were not like anything the Council had ever seen. These ships were smooth and dark, shaped like tears in the fabric of space itself. They had no visible engines, no weapons ports, no communication arrays. They just appeared from nowhere and hung silently in the void. The first ship appeared near the edge of Council space. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 100. Then 1,000. Within hours, alien sensors detected over 10,000 unknown ships scattered throughout the galaxy. They had appeared without warning, without any signs of faster-than-light travel, without any energy signatures that Council science could understand. The ships just sat there silent and waiting, like predators watching their prey. Ambassador Zethkri was in his private office when the reports reached him. His aide, a nervous young hegemony female, brought him the latest intelligence summary with shaking hands. "Sir," she said, "the unknown ships have been detected in every major Council system. Our military is requesting orders." Zethkri read the report with growing horror. The ships were positioned perfectly to attack every important Council world at the same time. Whoever had planned this operation knew Council space better than the Council itself. "Have we tried to communicate with them?" he asked. "Yes, sir. We have sent messages on every frequency we know. We have tried every known language. The ships do not respond." "What about our military response?" "Admiral Casas Terra has ordered the Third Fleet to intercept the ships near Vex Prime." "But sir..." She paused, looking terrified. "What?" "The fleet's navigation systems have been compromised. Their ships are receiving false position data. They think they are heading toward the unknown vessels, but they are actually flying toward empty space." Zethkri realized with growing horror that the galaxy was under attack by an enemy that was invisible, untouchable, and already inside their most secure systems. An enemy that had been planning this moment for longer than he wanted to imagine. "Who are they?" he whispered. His aide looked down at her data pad. "We do not know, sir. But intelligence estimates suggest that this level of coordination and technological superiority could only come from a species that has been studying us for decades. A species that knows our weaknesses better than we know them ourselves." Outside his office window, Zethkri could see stars scattered across the darkness of space. Each one might hide an enemy ship. Each one might be watching him right now. For the first time in his long life, the mighty ambassador of the hegemony felt fear. The message came exactly 72 hours after the first attacks. It appeared simultaneously on every communication system in Council space. Military networks, civilian broadcasts, personal devices, even the private channels used by the highest levels of government. The transmission was impossible to block or trace. It simply appeared everywhere at once, overriding every other signal in the galaxy. Ambassador Zethkri was in the Council's emergency command center when every screen in the room suddenly went black. Then a simple message appeared in perfect galactic standard script. "Attention Galactic Council. Prepare for transmission from Earth." Zethkri felt his heart stop beating. Earth? The primitive backwater world they had been joking about just days ago. The message continued. "For 200 years we listened. We learned. We prepared. You thought us primitive because we chose to remain hidden. You mistook patience for weakness. You discussed our extinction as entertainment. This was your error." A new image appeared on the screens. It showed a human female sitting in what looked like a simple office. She was wearing a dark blue uniform with symbols that meant nothing to Council experts. Her skin was pale, her hair was dark, and her eyes were the color of Earth's sky. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the Terran Defense Force. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of our flagship, currently positioned in orbit around your capital world." Every alien in the command center turned to look out the windows. The space around the Council's home planet was protected by thousands of defense platforms, patrol ships, and automated weapons systems. Nothing could get close without being detected and destroyed. But when they looked up at the stars, they saw something that made their blood freeze. A massive ship hung in the darkness above their world. It was larger than anything they had ever built, dark as space itself and completely invisible to their sensors. "You cannot see our ships because we do not wish you to see them," Admiral Chen continued. You cannot detect our weapons because they operate on principles your science has not discovered. You cannot trace this transmission because it travels through dimensions you do not know exist. The image on the screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Thousands of red dots appeared, marking the positions of human ships. They were everywhere, around every major council world, every military base, every important space station. "We have been among you for longer than your governments have existed," the Admiral said. "Our people have lived in your cities, worked in your governments, served in your military forces. We have been watching, learning, preparing for this day." Dr. Yathara was watching the broadcast from her damaged research station. As the human spoke, terrible understanding began to dawn on her. She thought about all the accidents and equipment failures that had happened over the years. All the times their most secure data had somehow been leaked. All the unexplained technical problems that had slowed down military projects. It had not been accidents at all. It had been sabotage. 3 days ago, Admiral Chen continued, "Your ambassador Zethkri suggested that you should destroy our world for mining resources. He said we were too primitive to stop you or even know you were coming. He and many others laughed at this idea." The image changed again, showing a recording of the council session where the jokes about Earth had been made. Every word, every laugh, every cruel suggestion was played back in perfect detail. "You thought this was funny," the Admiral said. "You thought we were helpless. You were wrong about both things." Suddenly, every council military base in the galaxy experienced simultaneous equipment failures. Not the 17-minute disruptions from before. This time, the system stayed down. Weapons platforms went dark. Shield generators shut off. Communication networks went silent. In minutes, the mighty council military was reduced to floating metal in space. "We could have revealed ourselves centuries ago," Admiral Chen said. "We could have demanded recognition, traded technology, joined your council as equals. We chose not to because we learned what kind of government you really are." The screens now showed images that made council leaders sick with fear. Pictures of species that had been relocated by council forces. Except these images showed the truth. Mass graves, destroyed cities, entire civilizations wiped out because they had resources the council wanted. "You rule through fear and violence," the Admiral continued. "You destroy species that cannot defend themselves. You enslave worlds for their resources. You commit genocide and call it relocation. We have been documenting your crimes for 200 years. Ambassador Vextar finally found his voice. "What do you want?" He shouted at the screen. As if she could hear him, Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We want you to understand something very important," she said. "Earth is not some primitive backwater that you can threaten for entertainment. We are not weak creatures that you can destroy whenever you feel like it. We are the species that has been pulling your strings for longer than you can imagine." The image changed one more time, showing technical specifications that made council scientists' minds reel. Faster than light drives that could cross the galaxy in hours. Weapons that could crack planets in half. Defensive systems that could stop entire fleets. "Your most advanced technology is centuries behind ours," the Admiral explained. "We have been guiding your scientific development, allowing you to make small discoveries while keeping you ignorant of real knowledge. Every major breakthrough your species have made in the past 50 years was based on information we chose to let you find." Dr. Yathara looked at her data files and realized, with horror, that the Admiral was telling the truth. She thought about all the mysterious ancient artifacts that had been discovered over the decades. Alien technology that had somehow survived from unknown civilizations. Technology that had advanced council science by centuries. It had all been planted by humans. "You exist because we allow it," Admiral Chen said. "Your government continues to function because we have not chosen to end it. Until 3 days ago, we were content to watch and wait. But then you made a mistake." The recording of Zethkri's speech played again, focusing on his suggestion to destroy Earth. "You threatened our world. You laughed about our extinction. You treated genocide as entertainment. This we cannot allow." Across the galaxy, human ships began to move. They did not attack, but they demonstrated their power in ways that left no doubt about their capabilities. Near Vex Prime, a human vessel the size of a small moon appeared next to the planet's largest space station. The station, which housed 10 million aliens, was gently moved to a different orbit without any damage to its structure. The entire operation took less than 5 minutes. Near Hegemony Central, another human ship created what could only be described as a small artificial star. The tiny sun burned bright enough to be seen from the planet's surface, then was extinguished as easily as blowing out a candle. Around Council military bases, human vessels demonstrated weapons that could slice asteroids in half with invisible beams, or freeze entire moons solid with some kind of energy field. "This is our message to you," Admiral Chen said. "Earth is under our protection. Any species that threatens Earth will find itself dealing with us. Any government that plans genocide will discover that humans do not forget, and we do not forgive." The transmission was ending, but the Admiral had one more thing to say. "You called us primitive. You called us weak. You said we would never know you were coming. You were wrong on all counts. We have always known you were there. We have been waiting for you to give us a reason to reveal ourselves." The screens went black for a moment, then showed one final message. "Thank you for giving us that reason." In the silence that followed, Ambassador Zethkri realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The species he had mocked as primitive cave dwellers were actually the most advanced civilization in known space, and they were very, very angry. "Sir," his aide whispered, "what do we do now?" Zethkri looked out at the stars, knowing that human ships were watching his every move. "Now," he said quietly, "we pray they are more merciful than we would have been." 1 month after Admiral Chen's broadcast, the Galactic Council met for the first time since the human revelation. The Grand Assembly Hall felt different now. Where once there had been confident voices discussing the fate of lesser species, now there was only nervous whispers and fearful glances. Many seats were empty. Several species had simply stopped attending council sessions after learning that humans had been monitoring their activities for centuries. Others had sent messages requesting immediate peace treaties with Earth. Ambassador Zethkri sat in his usual place, but he looked much older than he had a month ago. His red scales had lost their shine, and his eyes darted constantly to the windows, watching for human ships that might be invisible in the darkness. The council chairman called the session to order, with his voice of distant thunder, but even he sounded uncertain. "The primary topic for today's session," he announced, "is the response to contact from the Terran species. Ambassador Zethkri will present the council's official position." Zethkri stood slowly. A month ago, he had been one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now he felt like a small child being called to explain why he had broken something important. "Honored members," he began, after extensive analysis of the situation, "the council recommends immediate diplomatic contact with the Terran government. We wish to establish peaceful relations with Earth and its territories." A few quiet murmurs rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew this was not really a choice. The humans had made it very clear that they could destroy the council whenever they wanted. "What territories?" asked Dr. Yathara from her seat in the science section. "Our surveys show that humans have never left their home system." Zethkri looked uncomfortable. That information was incorrect. According to intelligence reports we have received since the Admiral's broadcast, humans have established colonies on over 300 worlds. Many of these worlds were ones we classified as uninhabited. The assembly fell silent. 300 worlds meant the human empire was larger than most council member species. It meant humans had been expanding across the galaxy while pretending to be trapped on a single planet. "How long have they been colonizing space?" asked another member. "Our best estimates suggest they began interstellar travel approximately 150 years ago. Their first colonies were established around the same time we began monitoring their homeworld." The implications of this were staggering. While the Council had been watching Earth and seeing primitive humans with chemical rockets, the real human civilization had been spreading across the galaxy like an invisible plague. "There is more," Zethkri continued reluctantly. "Analysis of our own records shows evidence of human infiltration dating back over 80 years. Some of our most trusted advisors, military officers, and scientists may have been humans in disguise." A wave of paranoid fear swept through the assembly. If humans could disguise themselves as other species, then anyone might be a spy. Anyone might be reporting back to Earth. "How is that possible?" demanded the representative from the Crystalline Collective. "Our species look completely different from humans. They could not possibly disguise themselves as us." According to the intelligence reports, Zethkri said, humans have technology that can alter their appearance at the genetic level. They can become perfect copies of other species, complete with correct biology. correct psychology, and correct cultural knowledge. Dr. Yithara felt sick as she remembered all her colleagues over the years, the helpful research assistants who had suggested new areas of study, the security officers who had helped her access classified information, the communications technicians who had maintained her equipment. Any of them could have been human. "What about our military situation?" asked Admiral Kostera, the Council's chief military commander. "Can we defend ourselves if necessary?" Zethkri looked even more uncomfortable. "Admiral, our military assessment concludes that we have no effective defense against human technology. Their weapons are centuries beyond ours. Their ships are faster and more advanced than anything we can build. Most importantly, they know the location and capabilities of every military asset we possess. How many ships do they have? We do not know. Our sensors cannot detect them unless they choose to be seen. Intelligence estimates range from 10,000 to over 1 million vessels." The Admiral sat back in his chair looking defeated. 1,000,000 ships meant the humans could conquer the entire galaxy without significant resistance. "What do they want from us?" asked the Council chairman. Before Zethkri could answer, every screen in the assembly hall activated. The familiar face of Admiral Chen appeared, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood humans wearing different uniforms, representing different branches of their government. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said. "I am here to answer that question directly." The assembly erupted in panic. No one had detected any human ships approaching. The communication systems were supposed to be secure, yet somehow the humans were broadcasting directly into the most protected facility in Council space. "Please remain calm," Admiral Chen continued. "We are not here to harm you. We are here to establish a new relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy." The Council chairman found his voice. "What kind of relationship?" "A partnership," the Admiral replied. "But not the kind of partnership you are used to. You will no longer be making decisions about which species live or die. You will no longer be relocating civilizations to take their resources. You will no longer be ruling through fear and violence." "What authority do you have to make such demands?" asked Zethkri, trying to sound defiant. Admiral Chen smiled that cold smile again. "The same authority you claimed when you decided our world should be destroyed for mining materials. The authority of superior power." A new figure stepped forward on the screen. This human was older, with gray hair and lines around his eyes. He wore robes similar to those of council members. "My name is Ambassador James Harrison," he said. "I have been serving in various council governments for the past 30 years. You know me as advisor to Lehman of the Hegemony Strategic Planning Division." Gasps of shock filled the assembly. Thalemon had been one of the most trusted advisors in the Hegemony government. He had helped plan military campaigns, resource allocation, and diplomatic strategies, and he had been human all along. "There are others like me throughout your governments," Ambassador Harrison continued. "We have been watching, learning, and documenting everything you do. We know about every war crime, every genocide, every species you have destroyed for convenience. We are here to offer you a choice," Admiral Chen said. "You can continue to exist as a governing body, but under human supervision. You will focus on peaceful cooperation between species, scientific advancement, and cultural exchange. In return, we will share some of our technology and protect you from external threats." "And if we refuse?" asked the chairman. "Then you will be replaced by a government that will accept these terms." The threat was clear. The humans were not asking for permission. They were informing the council of the new reality. "What about our sovereignty?" asked Zethkri. "What about our right to govern ourselves?" Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. "You forfeited that right when you began committing genocide for entertainment. Species that cannot govern themselves responsibly do not deserve sovereignty." Another human stepped forward, this one wearing what looked like a judge's robes. "I am Justice Minister Elizabeth Torres," she said. "Over the next year, we will be conducting trials for council members who have committed crimes against sentient species. The evidence has been collected over decades. The trials will be fair, but the evidence is overwhelming." Zethkri felt his world collapse around him. He thought about all the relocations he had authorized, all the species that had been moved off their home world so the council could mine their planets, all the civilizations that had quietly disappeared when they proved troublesome. He had never thought of it as murder. It had just been politics. "What will happen to us?" he asked quietly. "That depends on your individual actions," Justice Minister Torres replied. Those who cooperated with human agents and helped minimize casualties will face lighter sentences. Those who actively promoted genocide will face the full consequences of their actions. The broadcast ended, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Dr. Yathara was the first to speak. "How long have they been planning this?" "Probably since the day they discovered we existed," said Admiral Kostera. "This was not a response to our jokes about destroying Earth. This was a plan that has been decades in the making. They just needed an excuse to reveal themselves." Over the following months, the galaxy changed in ways no one could have imagined. Human technology began appearing on council worlds. Medical devices that could cure diseases thought incurable. Energy systems that provided unlimited clean power. Transportation networks that could move people across entire star systems in minutes. But the changes were not just technological. Human observers monitored every government decision. Human courts tried council members for war crimes. Human peacekeepers prevented conflicts between species. The galaxy was becoming a better place, but it was no longer under alien control.